What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and life coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, but more importantly, the stories we tell ourselves, those quiet little ones inside of our head. And you can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. to get real stories and real tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so excited to have my friend Linda Kroll on today. She is a super amazing person. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Carrie, and everybody.
And we are going to have such a great, there's so many things to talk about here today. I hope we can get it all in. And it's really one of those things. You guys know I love talking about stories. We talk a lot about our stories here, and our stories sometimes can support us or not support us. And we're going to talk about stories today. We're going to talk about those stories, the hidden stories, the stories that need to come out. We're also going to talk about really the concept of how life is happening for us, right? And this is one of Linda's specialties. She really guides people through this process of seeing your circumstances as an invitation to become more heart-centered and compassionate. And here's the thing, I'm going to wrap this into the story talk that we were just having. What about self-compassion? Because a lot of times our stories are not compassionate for ourselves. We are more willing, I find, to forgive others and give compassion to others than we really are to ourselves. But folks, you all know that's where it starts. It starts here in the home of our heart. So I love, love, love Linda's work, and that's what we're going to kick off with today, talking about that. But before I introduce her, just a word from our sponsor. Attention all therapists, mediators, coaches, and family professionals. Are you ready to make a real difference in the lives of couples and families? Imagine guiding them through peaceful, respectful transformations rather than seeing them torn apart. Join Linda Kroll and discover compassionate mediation, a game-changing approach that empowers you to expand your expertise, impact, and income. You'll gain emotional, spiritual, legal, and financial insights, all while earning continuing education credits. It's like having a personal therapist, mediator, attorney, and spiritual mentor all in one. Ready to elevate your practice? Visit lindakroll.com/roadmap to learn about compassionate mediation today. That's Linda Kroll, Linda, L-A-N-D-A, Kroll, KROLL.com/roadmap. And Linda, that leads me to wanting to do this amazing introduction on you, because I mentioned that I really don't think I know anybody with as many qualifications, as unique qualifications that so beautifully meld together as you have. So let me share. Linda's a lifelong learner who's an internal family systems therapist, a mediator, attorney, author, and Chopra certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. Her lifelong mission is to help people be more compassionate with themselves and others, to add more peace, love, and joy, relationships, families, and the world. This is what we're adding peace to, people. It's what we need. I feel like it's what the world needs right now. And Linda, welcome, welcome. I'm so
Thank you.
excited.
So glad to be here. We've tried to put this interview together, and it's coming at just the right time. And everything you said, I totally agree with. One of my mottos is love is the answer always, but it starts with loving yourself. And you spoke directly to how we can be more loving to others than we are to ourselves in our self-talk and the stories we hold on to. So I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for coming on. You are just like a wealth of information and wisdom. And, I love the way you've melded all these together, all of these aspects of yourself, and the things that you've been trained in, because really, if you think about it, it's such a beautiful, perfect melody of things that you have going on here. It's a beautiful song, as I would say, to sing, because you're hitting all aspects of that. That's why I love this program that you've put together, this compassionate mediation program. And it boils down, just like you said, to really giving that compassion to ourselves first.
Right.
How do we do that? Where do we even start to give ourselves self-compassion?
Well, I think it starts by getting in touch with what I'm calling your higher self. That space inside that is calm, clear, compassionate, where we don't spend a lot of time. Some people call it their soul, their spirit, their higher self. If they're connected to God, it's God inside, but it's that true essence, that divine essence of who we are. I mean, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're body, mind, and spirit. But when we're in our higher self, or I call it self with a capital S, we can be more compassionate, and we recognize that we can be inspired by learning more about ourselves. So in other words, instead of being in self, as I tell all my clients, we have parts that we exile and push aside, the hurt, the sadness, the fear, push it aside, exile it. And then we go out in the world and we manage. And we manage by being nice, pleasing, caretaking, hardworking. There's lots of ways to manage. Mm-hmm. But often we put on what I call a pseudo self, where we want to look like we're in self, calm, clear, and compassion, but we're really feeling sad, hurt, scared, even angry sometimes, but we're pushing it aside. So we've got the exiles that we're trying to manage, and when we can't manage them, we act out in extreme ways. So some people eat too much, drink too much, shop too much, get addicted to alcohol or drugs, get depressed, get enraged, go have an affair. There's all different ways to get extreme. So what I teach everyone who comes to see me, and what I'm even having conversations with my grandchildren about, that when we are in touch with our higher self, then we recognize the parts that we have are protecting us based on the limiting stories and beliefs that we grew up with. So that's where our work ties in, Carrie, because you talk so much about stories and how the stories that we keep repeating to ourselves often keep us stuck. And many times we come in with a victim story. And when we look at it, and as you said, recognize that life is happening for us rather than to us. And when we can let go of the need to be in control, which is what our egos need, and show up more spiritually present, aware, grateful, then we can look at the circumstances and see what we can learn from it, and then see what we can share with what we've learned. So that's always my goal.
You said so many amazing, powerful things in there. And one of the things I think is like fundamental to the understanding of this whole thing is what you said about ourselves, or the parts of ourselves are always trying to protect us, right? Like I try to talk to my clients about this because we often feel alone. We feel like we're the only ones that have this struggle or these thoughts or these stories in our heads. When really, I love to kind of normalize the fact that we're all wired the same, right? Our brains are wired the same. So our brains are all trying to protect us. It's not just my brain, my story, your story. Everybody's brain is trying to keep us in that comfort zone and not make any changes, right? And so that's its job. And I feel like when you can kind of say, kind of separate yourself from that and say, hey, thank you, brain. I see that you're doing your job to keep me safe, but this story or this mantra or this relationship or whatever it is that's holding you back is not serving me any longer. And really sort of knowing that you have more control over that than you think that you do. And you mentioned control as well.
And I put these here not knowing if I was going to use them or not, because I wasn't sure what we're going to talk about, but I just got to bring up my prop. Okay. I got props. Okay. We all have an inner child. So if you're in a relationship, you can protect us, but we all have an inner child, and we exile the sadness, the hurt that we couldn't get our needs met with. And then we learn how to protect ourselves. And I don't have the, wait a second. Here we go.
I
This
can't wait
is
to
the
see what you're
guy.
gonna pull out.
The guy tries to be cool,
Oh,
and the
okay.
girl, and that, please forgive the sexist, it can go either way. But this is my codependent doll, the one that tries to please others and take, I
Yes,
bought her this way. She
her
was
hair's a
exhausted
mess.
when I bought her, right? So she tries to take care of everybody. And then when we
Uh-huh.
don't get our needs met, people come out and they react this way. And often in counseling or mediation, that's the parts I see. Let me put it
That's
up.
awesome.
Okay,
The
so you
ape
get
and
it.
the, right.
So each one of these parts has its own story. This
Yeah.
one is mad and judging and angry and punitive. And this one thinks he has to be cool or she has to please everybody. But when you're really coming from your higher self and you're compassionate, you recognize you have certain pain from your childhood.
Mhm.
And when you change the story, when you recognize that you can heal and unburden the pain, then you can speak for your parts instead of from your parts, and it's a whole different dialogue. So that's
Oh,
internal family systems in a 2-minute nutshell.
that is so cool. It's like I heard somebody talk about it in terms of giving them a voice, right? Like
Right.
giving them the mic, so to speak, right? Because I got this in front of me. It makes me think that. So I love that. Explain that a little bit more. So you're not acting from your part. How do you get that bit of detachment that needs to happen to get
Well,
to
I've got
that point?
a meditation that I'll tell you later how to access, but every client that comes to my office, we talk about, they want to tell me their story. Okay,
Yeah.
so they come into my office filled with the story of what is wrong in their life or what is wrong in their relationship. And if I let them, they could talk for 45 minutes and then walk out feeling marginally better because they were listened to, but that's not going to help them. Pardon me in the background there. But what I asked them to do after a few minutes of their story is ask them if I could show them a different way to look at the story.
Mhm.
And we start by talking about who are you in conflict with? Who is bothering you? What do they do that bothers you? What do
Yeah.
you do in response? What do they react to what you do? What do you think? What do you feel? And I'm getting their story
Mm.
and I'm seeing how they relate to each other. And then I ask them about their family of origin, the birthplace of all stories. Family of
Yeah.
origin. What did you learn along the way? What did your parents say? What did your parents do? Were you supposed to be perfect? Was there alcohol? Was there addiction? What did you learn from your story? And what did the other person learn from their story? Because that helps you get a bird's eye view of why your partner may not be emotionally available or why you keep looking at them through a filter and keep your wall up around your heart.
Mhm.
So when you get to see that you've got your beliefs from your family of origin, as did your partner, or whoever you're in conflict with, you can have more compassion for the people that you are now. And then you realize you've both done the best you've known how to do, but you can do it better. You can learn a better way to communicate. And I call that compassionate communication. Nonviolent communication is another form. There's different forms, but
Mhm.
my version of compassionate communication has you connect to your best self, let go of the limiting beliefs, judgments, and stories, unburden the pain from the past, and relate from your heart.
Mm.
So when you connect to yourself, when you ask how to do that, there are lots of ways. Sometimes just taking a belly breath. Just because if you notice when you think about your story and your victimhood or your powerlessness or your hurt or your pain or your anger, take a breath with me, everybody, because what happens is you constrict, right?
Mm.
If you're telling yourself the same story where you were the victim, then you keep viscerally reacting as if you're still the victim. So sometimes just putting your hand on your abdomen, do it with me, and just inhale into your abdomen so your abdomen expands. Exhale, belly button back to the spine. One more, all the way into your abdomen first. Belly button back to the spine. Good, one more for practice. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back. Now just breathe. And this is what I do in the first session with all of my clients because we do have this healthy self. It's not something you have to acquire. It's something you have to remember. That we're all divine beings. We're all beacons of light and channels of love, and we lose sight of that. So when we take a few breaths and air gets in, you have a little more space available, and your parts relax a little bit. Your parts learn how to relax.
You're calming your nervous system, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And
And then once you're aware that you're thinking a thought, you go into your body and see where do you feel it in your body. So if you're
Mm,
thinking that your husband isn't paying attention to you and you're feeling hurt and ignored and angry, you might feel it in your stomach, in your neck, in your back. And if you take a few breaths and give attention to that part of you, then you can have a dialogue with it. How do you feel? What can I do for you? And in my first session, I take people on a meditation to help them get to the top of a mountain, where all the parts that are angry, sad, scared, hurt, reactive, judgmental, self-critical, you know your parts,
yeah.
where they just wait at the base of the mountain and you go up in self and send compassion to all your parts.
Mm.
So it's a way to practice. And in my book, Linda Kroll, my book has meditation in it and how to understand self in parts. And we can talk about that later. But
Oh,
it's a way to access your healthy self. And then once you've done that, you look at your stories, which is
I love that. I love that because you know, and incorporating all those beautiful things into it. So it's not just therapy. It's not just, you know, mediation. It's all these things in one where you are bringing people on this journey really back to themselves.
exactly. And that's where it all starts. I often tell people, you know, who come first, they either do individual counseling with me, couples counseling, or divorce mediation. You
Hmm.
never know, and they may never know. One might come for one and the other. But I tell them the details of working out, resolving conflict aren't difficult, whether it's money, children, the house, everything. What's challenging is to help each of them get to self because they want to hold on to their story.
Of course.
And I tell them it creates a wall around their heart, which they put up to protect themselves from being hurt.
Hmm.
And sadly, filters through which they judge their partner. And those filters are built on their story. He always does this. She never does that. She should do this. He should do that. And you have to be willing to have the courage to put your walls down, change your filter, and start over. So, and
Vulnerability,
we
right?
can do that all the time.
Hmm.
Thich Nhat Hanh has said that the way to peace is to go to one side and tell about the pain and suffering of the other side, and go
Mm.
back to the other side and tell about the pain and suffering of the first side, which is exactly what you said, Carrie. We're all human, we're all vulnerable, we're all sad and scared and hurt and angry sometimes. So if we can have compassion for our humanity from our divine divinity, then conflicts resolve. People can change their relationship in a moment. And you don't even have to do it with your partner or with someone you're in conflict with, because once you access more of your higher self, be willing to change your story, then the energy shifts like butterfly wings. You don't even have to have a conversation. You might notice that you've been in conflict, you shift your energy, and then the other person calls you out of the blue because they're no longer feeling the energy of your old story that's blocking them from connecting.
Yeah, it's
Right?
so beautiful. Again, bringing like that whole energy piece of it into it, because as we know, energy is everything.
Right.
Everything is energy. And so when you can sometimes do your best work not with that person,
Exactly.
alone, right? With a piece of paper in a meditation. You know, it makes me think of Ho'oponopono, you know, the forgiveness meditation, the
Exactly.
Hawaiian forgiveness meditation that I love and do because you're releasing it. We think we're giving something to somebody else, but really it's the gift that we give back to ourselves. But how
Exactly.
people can feel it. They feel when you've let that go,
Exactly.
right? We all have been in that situation where we know somebody maybe doesn't like us or they're holding a grudge, and we can feel that the second we're around them, we don't like the way
Right.
that feels. So when that can release and that person can get to their higher selves, that is such powerful work, Linda. I love that.
Thank you. It is. It's a combination of internal family systems therapy, which I've done for 35 years. When I went to the Chopra Center, it's higher consciousness, where we're not working on the fight, flight, freeze, spawn level of consciousness, but more transcendent in connection with that higher self energy. I studied a lot with Sark as a mentor, and one of her mottos is that she is a full cup of love, sharing her overflow with the world.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I love that because I actually wrote a song one time called A Broken Cup. Because if the cup's broken and you keep trying to fill it and fill it,
Right.
it's just leaking out the side. But I love that, a full cup, and then she's sharing the overflow. Because like the oxygen mask, right? We need to give
Right.
to ourselves first. And I feel like that's where people really miss out on the beauty of this because they're
Right.
so busy looking at what the other person's doing and how it's affecting them. When
Yeah.
really, when we can step back and say, you know, I'm actually 100% responsible for what's going on in my life and look at it from that lens, your options open wide up for you.
Totally. And I do a lot of this just with individuals because it doesn't need a couple to do this. If one person brings more higher self energy into a discussion, into a relationship, the relationship changes. And you may not, once you cut to your higher self, then I invite people to practice the 5 steps to receive what they want and need.
Mm.
And those are quickly know, deserve, ask, receive, and stay grateful.
Ooh.
So the knowing is often hard because if you're codependent, and what I mean by codependent is someone who thinks taking care of other people's needs is more important than taking care of your own, where you're a perfectionist or a people pleaser, where you avoid conflict, you don't like to say no, you don't have very good boundaries, and that's your story, sadly.
Yeah.
And when you live from that, you have what's called an external locus of control, where you really are looking at how people are looking at you for your identity instead of writing your story from within and knowing how good you are to begin with.
Yeah.
So when you begin to think about what you want instead of what you don't want, you may have to go back to what you wanted as a child because the focus now is inward, like you said, as opposed to taking care of everyone else.
Mhm.
So the first step is to know. The second step is to know you deserve it. And this is where those
Yeah.
stories come in. Because if you get stuck in stories from your childhood where you were ignored or you were bullied or
Mhm.
your parents had a secret or there was alcohol, you grow up with a story that informs your future. And when you go back and heal that inner child and unburden the energy, the beliefs, the experience, which you can do, then you know you're deserving. New story, brand new story. And here's the tip, you're all deserving. And anything that's in the way of that, again, old story, which you can change. So when you know what you want and you know you deserve it, the third part is an ask. It's not a demand, it's not a whine, it's not an ultimatum, it's a request. It's a simple request.
Yeah.
And then be willing to receive because codependents are givers. We don't like to receive. And then be grateful. And once you're in your higher self and learn how to do that, you give the other person a chance to say yes or no to your question, or offer another alternative, or write a different story together that isn't based on the habits that you've gotten into in the past.
That's beautiful.
And then when you've done that, you create something new together, whatever that looks like. And if it's an ending, if you realize that you came together, maybe you had children, maybe you created a beautiful home, but for some reason, after X amount of years, you're really not looking at going the distance together. There is a way to compassionately, kindly, respectfully restructure your family into 2 intact and loving homes where your children, if you have them, feel safe in each. And that's all done by changing your story. So I love what you do. Yes.
It's all about the story, right? Hey, hold on, everybody. I know you are hanging on her every word. We'll be right back with Linda after a word from our sponsor. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. I am here with Linda Kroll. She has some amazing information that she's dropping and some wisdom about the 5 steps. And tell us, summarize that for us, Linda, because that was really powerful. You said a lot of powerful things. I love what you said about rewriting a story together. That was so beautiful.
Thank you. So just as a brief recap, the 5 steps are to know what you want, know you deserve it, learn how to ask, be willing to receive, and stay grateful. And then you can talk about everything with empathy, and we'll come back to empathy. But it made me, and you were talking with me about this, it reminded us of our favorite quote from Wayne Dyer.
Yes.
When you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. So when you're looking at your life, your story, your situation from your higher self, there's more calm, clarity, compassion, courage, curiosity, connection, a lot of C words, and gratitude. That changes the story rather than looking at it from the parts that have grievances are the parts that are
The
trying to be
monkey.
cool, right? You have to acknowledge the part, but you have to let them know that you're going to show up in your higher self.
Mm,
Speak for the pain, the sadness, the fear that you pushed aside, and listen with empathy. And that's how you write the new story too. Because instead of telling the same story of you did this and you did that and you were wrong,
Yeah.
it's not a you message anymore. When you're talking about empathy, you're coming from your higher self and you're speaking for those feelings that you exhale. So you're speaking for your sadness or your fear or your hurt. Sometimes codependents need to speak for our anger too, because we don't get angry. Nice little-
exactly, right? I love that.
That's an old story.
I love, that's a good one. You know, and the thing about the Wayne Dyer, and all of this is making me think about, you know, we want to so much blame other people for those feelings. And I love that you're saying, you know, give a voice to your sadness, give a voice, because it makes it less like you feel so vulnerable. You would be more apt to, anybody would be, to share it coming from that place of, oh, I'm going to give this sadness a voice. I'm going to give this anger a voice. I love looking at it like that. And you also talked, you know, the Wayne Dyer quote talks about changing our perspective, right? That's a scientific um, sentence is what that is. Really, it's based on science. It's based on people doing scientific studies, because you know, the root of that is when you have an expectation of somebody, but in the view from a scientific standpoint is it can change the outcome of that study, because we think that it's going to work or not work. We do the same thing with people, right? We have these expectations that, oh, they're no good, or they're never going to get me what I want, or, you know, I'm just going to have to leave them, or whatever your thoughts are. We've assigned this meaning to their behavior. And you know what? Most of the time, I'm going to say we're probably wrong about what it really means. But we are the ones who did that, right?
Exactly. And those expectations based on our story, someone said, it's not my quote, but I love it, is that expectations are premeditated resentment. I'll
Ooh,
say that again. Isn't that
wow.
good?
Yeah.
Expectations are premeditated resentment. And it's our
Wow.
egos that have the expectations. And speaking of Wayne Dyer, I studied a lot of his material a long time ago. And he had a sheet one time with ego-driven life on one side and a spiritually driven life on the other side. And he compared the two, that when you're coming from your ego, all those managing parts, reactive parts, you get angry, you want to be in control.
Yeah.
And the need to control, have it your way, leads to certain wounds, because we're not going to have it our way.
Right.
And we can keep hitting our head up against the wall. Or I came up with this a couple months ago. I got up one morning and I came up with the idea of a spiritual graph, GRAFT. And very briefly, the graph is, see what the wound is, see what your expectations, your story is, and add to it these things. G, gratitude, RA, radical acceptance, F,
Yeah.
forgiveness, and P, trust.
Ooh, I love that.
So be grateful for what you have, no matter where it is. Radically accept what is without trying to change it or ruminating or projecting. Forgive yourself and everybody else. Start with yourself. And then trust that you're on the process, you're on your path in the highest good for you and everyone concerned.
That's
my
beautiful.
spiritual graph.
I love the spiritual graph, like a skin graph, but it's a spiritual
Yes.
graph. That's really cool, Linda. I
Thanks.
love that. And those are all such important things, because, you know, that brings us back into our higher self. Whenever you think about forgiveness and gratitude, and people, you know, think, of course I'm grateful when something good happens, but that, as we know, is not really practicing gratitude. It's in a situation, you're looking for what you're grateful for, because you're looking for what is enough. Because we often, again, because our minds are so beautifully predisposed to look for what's wrong, we're so good at looking for what's wrong. We're so good at looking for what's wrong in other people. But when we can stop and say, hey, you know what? I really like this. Here's what's working well. That's practicing gratitude. It's not waiting for something good to happen. It's in the midst of something that you might not want happening, and
Exactly.
being able to find gratitude in that moment. That's really
Wasn't
powerful.
looking for the good part of what your mantra is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What did you
Thank
always
you.
say about it? I mean, that was kind of the title of the show at the beginning.
It is the title of the show, Look for the Good, because
There you
that's
go.
what, you know, I spent a lot of time coming up with that title, because I feel like it's something that we don't do.
Right.
We're so easily looking for what's wrong. And that's what I say about overcoming our biology, right? You've got to overcome your biology because that's the way we're all wired.
Right.
But we're not getting a software upgrade anytime soon. And we love upgrades. We love to upgrade our phone. We love to upgrade everything in our home. So if you want to upgrade your mind as well, you got to do it yourself. And it can be done. And that's the beauty of neuroscience and the plasticity of our brains and everything you're
Great. You
talking
made me
about.
think about meditation for a minute.
Yeah.
As a meditation teacher, I'm not sitting on a pillow for 20 minutes twice a day. It's more of give yourself permission to stop thinking, stop believing your thoughts, all those stories about your thoughts. But what it also does, even if you do it for 2 minutes, even if you just take a breath and be present in the now for 2 minutes, I look at it as rebooting when you mentioned, neuroplasticity and everything. It's like if your computer it starts to spin and you just have to wait for it to spin, and what you do is turn it on and turn it off. That's what I think about of meditation, that instead of listening to the cacophony of all our stories, we just start over, reboot, and come from your higher self for more calm, compassionate, witnessing awareness.
I love that. I talk about that as well in my class because one of my favorite meditation teachers, Emily Fletcher, talks about the same sort of analogy with the computer because it's like, when you've got all those windows open, if you can see the top of my computer, I do. I love that. And all of a sudden your email's not working. Have you ever done it where you try to type and it's like not catching up with you? And then all of a sudden it comes on and you have no control of it. And my kids would come in and be like, Mom, you've got too many windows open. You got to close those down. And that's really what meditation is, right?
Right.
It's closing down all those windows. And sometimes something comes up because it wants you to X out of it. So you might have a thought, and that's okay. Let's X out of that one. And you're just closing the window. So like you said, so that we can reboot. We get a chance to reboot our whole entire nervous system, really.
Yeah. And another way to do that is to journal. So, and I know you're big on writing because we can listen to the stories of our parts. In other words, if we have a part that's angry, we could visualize what that part looks like, bring in compassion and curiosity to that part, and just write at the top of the page from self, how can I help? And then let your part write their story. Write down everything that they feel, think, and have believed for years. Make sure you're curious and let them continue to vent, rant, cry. And then when you're done, write a letter to them from your higher self that helps them give a new story. I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. I understand why you feel that way. And that's bringing that self-compassion to yourself in a way that gives your parts a chance to unburden. And then they can shift because they no longer have to carry the old story.
That is so beautiful. And I think people underestimate the power of journaling because I know I wrote my whole first album through journaling. And why was I journaling? I was journaling because I was trying to deal with all this tragedy in my family and having young kids at the same time. And I didn't know what to do with all of it. So journaling really got me through that. And I didn't know that out of the journaling would come the beauty that came, the poems, which turned into songs, which turned into an album.
Songs are beautiful.
Oh,
Your book was beautiful. I read it. Beautiful.
Thank you, Linda. And so that's the power of it, is really getting in touch with all those parts, all those things, all those thoughts, and putting them down on paper is something so cathartic. It's the process, and it's not done on a computer. It's hand, pen to paper.
Actually, I do it on computer.
Do you?
Because I'm faster on computer. I have actually done a document where at the top in capitals, I'll write self, who can I help? And then I'll have a little table where I'll invite different parts to sit down.
Ooh.
So my sadness might be in italics, and my anger might be in bold, and my jealousy might be in green. And there are different fonts and different colors. And I'm just listening to all of their stories.
That's awesome.
It's able to keep them safe.
I love that because, again, you are reinforcing that higher self once again, right? It's like, I did this really cool exercise the other day. I like hypnotherapy. I did hypnobirthing back when I was having my kids. And that was the exercise to bring that higher self forward. You went up on a mountain because I've done that one with you before. It was beautiful. And this took me down an elevator. So it took me down the elevator into myself. And it's interesting, right? But then the higher self is driving the ship. And I love that. I love that you really bring that out.
And that breath will do it. Because even if you find yourself constricting, listening to the same story, agitated, upset, do 3 belly breaths. Just take a moment. And the reason, like I said, belly breaths bring more air in as opposed to just getting stuck in your chest. And they allow you to be present with more calm, compassion, curiosity, as opposed to judgment, blame, fear, all those other parts that may want to try to protect you.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you're going to invite them to let you take the lead. And
I
that's
love
what
that.
I said, speaking for a part instead of from a part. Because when you're in self, it's not like you're a Zen Buddhist where nothing bothers you. It's just that if you notice you're angry, you can say there's a part of me that's angry because, or there's a part of me that's hurt because, and share that. And the more you practice exercising that muscle of speaking from your higher self for your part, you'll see your relationships start to change. And all the stories that you've learned about yourself change. And all the stories that you've told yourself about everybody else in your life changes too. Which
So
is
powerful.
usually a miracle.
It really is. Don't go anywhere. I know, again, you guys are hanging on Linda's every word. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here with Linda Kroll. Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Attention all therapists, mediators, coaches, and family professionals. Are you ready to make a real difference in the lives of individuals, couples, and families? Imagine guiding them through peaceful, respectful transformations rather than seeing them torn apart. Join Linda Kroll and discover compassionate mediation, a game-changing approach that empowers you to expand your expertise, impact, and income. You'll gain emotional, spiritual, legal, and financial insights, all while earning continuing education credits. It's like having a personal therapist, mediator, attorney, and spiritual mentor all in one. Ready to elevate your practice? Visit lindakroll.com/roadmap to learn about compassionate mediation today. That's Linda Kroll, KROLL.com/roadmap, ROADMAP today. Everybody, we are having this incredible conversation with Linda, and you know, I have some insights here on Linda, so I just happen to personally know her story, and she's such an incredible person, and you're really not going to believe some of the things that she has gotten over. But I would love for you, Linda, to share something that you feel comfortable sharing about your story and how you got over it. How did you use gratitude? And I'm picking that because it's your number one on the first graft step that you gave us. How'd you use gratitude to help you get through some of these tough things in your life?
I think that my whole life I've been leaning to be more spiritual rather than ego-based. I'm a work in progress, and
Aren't we all?
I think, aren't we all? And I think that my spiritual belief in gratitude, presence, connection has served me because I have had several challenges, as have all of us. But I've had, I've had a chronic illness. I had lived with addicts. I got divorced. I have had 6 cancers, including stage 4 lymphoma, stage 2 breast cancer, colon cancer, melanomas. And the biggest challenge was I have 2 beautiful daughters, 3 wonderful grandchildren, a son-in-law, wonderful son-in-law. But my younger daughter was an addict for most of her life. So for 20 years, she courageously fought it. And at the age of 41, she passed of an overdose. It would be 3 years in September. So I have found that being grateful that I had her, being grateful that I had the marriage I did for as long as I had it, being grateful that science, medicine could cure me, and that I am, thank God, cancer-free. I think the whole time I was in the hospital for chemo and whatever test, I just said the Lord's Prayer, staying in touch with that. And once my daughter passed, I created a Facebook group called Grief and Gratitude with Linda and Dana, because she and I always knew that the chance was that I would outlive her, sadly. And I always feel her presence all the time. And it's the gratitude that I had her that helped mitigate the grief of losing her. And I think if we all look at that life challenge that we have, with the gratitude that we've lived through it, that we had the experience, that we're still here, and radically accept that whatever happens, happens, and forgive myself, forgive my ex-husband, forgive my daughter for using, and trust that this is all part of my journey. It's part of their soul's journey. My daughter Dana was a beautiful light in this world, and I still feel her presence, and the books that I've written and am writing about her, with her, through her, are the story of how to love a child through addiction and still love yourself. And I think that when you write a story from gratitude instead of victimhood, not only does it shift your perspective, but it allows you to help others shift their perspective in a way that helps mitigate the grief. So
That is so powerful. Linda, you've had an exceptionally hard amount of stories that you had to get through, for sure.
thank
And
you.
I love that, I love that you're writing that story about Dana to help other families, right? Because we
Yes.
know that there's other people that are going through this out there, and it's hard and it's sad. I mean, to lose somebody. I lost my sister, she was 38, very similar age to Dana. And to really to get through that is really hard. And to use gratitude and grief together is really a powerful combination, right?
Yes. And
And
I just feel the need to share it because it's just an offering. If anybody feels the need, it's lindakroll.com book. And the free chapter will also send you to a video of me talking to other parents when my daughter was missing. This was several years before she passed. But just working with the terror and the anger and the sadness and the fear, but doing it from a perspective that actually let me let go and let God, because Al-Anon has been a big part of my life and a big part of my spiritual growth. To recognize our powerlessness, there is a connection. Let the higher power lead the way. Take my inventory, see what stories I'm telling myself and how it makes me show up, and change those stories. So it's been a journey. I'm 77 and a half almost. And
wow,
thank you.
you don't look it. You look
I
57.
fished for that. I fished for that one. But thank you. But at any age, we can change our story. And what I realized lately, that when you give up a story, it's like giving up a dream. And when we have a relationship, we're looking at a possible divorce. Oftentimes we've given up on our partner on one level. We maybe even have given up on the relationship and just coexisted. But when we have to give up on the dream, we don't want to do that. That's the biggest hurdle. And I find that giving up on the dream is the only thing we need to do to let go to make room for another dream. And it's the caterpillar and the chrysalis and the butterfly. We're all caterpillars. And then when our life falls apart, because it does, and then we're in the mix of all the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, there's a void that comes where the story we had is no longer viable, and we don't know what that story is going to be. So getting comfortable in that chrysalis, where basically the caterpillar dissolves in the dark, and trusting that in that darkness, you have a new story to write. It might not be clear yet. You may have to journal like you did. I did, carry all our feelings first. But then we emerge into the butterflies that we all are. And that's a whole nother story from a whole different perspective, from our higher self, our spiritual center, our soul.
I love that. And you can't get there. I mean, you can't you can't not be the caterpillar, like you said, just completely dissolving in the chrysalis to get to the other side. I love what you said about giving up the dream. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And, I tell my kids, when you let go of things that are not serving you, maybe it is a job, maybe it's a boyfriend, whatever it is, when you let go of that, it allows the universe says, oh, okay, we're done with that. Let's give her what we really wanted to give her, which is something even better. And I feel like we lose track of that.
Right. And one final thought is about the stories from your different chakras. Okay. We have energy centers in the body, starting at the base of the spine to the top of your head. And when I was going through my divorce, I wrote my estranged husband letters for each of my chakras.
Ooh.
The base chakra was full of profanity. And the horse you rode in on.
love that.
And as I got higher in terms of acceptance and understanding, when I got to my divine self,
Yeah.
it was basically, thank you for our experience, thank you for our children. And the night before we got divorced, I actually wrote a prayer that I brought to the courthouse, inviting us to come from our higher self, to not let the parts of us that were angry, revengeful, retributive, hurting, hurtful, but to really recognize the love we once had for each other and to continue on for the benefit of our children and our future. So it's a beautiful prayer that I did share with him. It did make a difference in other people's lives. And it's one where I let all my parts share their stories
Mhm.
and then looked at it with gratitude and forgiveness for everything.
Oh, you gave me a chill when you said that. I love that. I've never heard of telling the story from each chakra. And I'm looking at that picture. If you're listening on the radio, you can't see your picture, but if you're watching the video, you can. And Linda has this beautiful, almost like a mandala with the designs and the colors of the chakras. And so as you tell those stories, that's so powerful. And as you guys know, chakras are just your energy centers throughout your body. Um, and having each one of them speak is really brilliant. I love that.
And you can tell a story from the each age of your child, of your own child. So if you go back and listen to your 6-year-old talk about how sad she was at the time, or your 12-year-old talk about how lonely he felt in school, and you remind that part of you that they're no longer there, but you are here now, changes the story, changes the trajectory of your life.
It really does, because you're giving it a new meaning, which we talked
Right.
about at the top, right? You're
Right.
putting on a different lens, you're putting on a different pair of glasses, you're getting curious about, one of the questions that I absolutely love to ask is, what else is possible here? Because we get so stuck in that story being true, but yet studies show that stories are less than most stories that we recall and we start telling are less than 50% accurate, but we hang on to them. We hang
I'd
on
say
to
that's
them,
generous.
right? I know.
Byron Katie, who I know we both listen to a lot,
Yep.
says that 85% of our problems is because we believe our thoughts.
So
You
true.
know, when we write them down and ask
Right.
you at 100%, what would you do if you didn't think that thought, you'll find that all the stories. So what we really need to do is just take a breath, be present, be curious, show up with gratitude, and live our lives each day that way with more peace, love, and joy.
I love that, because that's really what we're here for, right?
Right.
And when you can do that, you don't walk around in the world looking for occasions to be, insulted or pissed off, or, as we know, some people do that. So when you can get to that real, Wayne Dyer talks a lot about that too, when you can get to that really peaceful place where you're not being triggered, that is the essence of peace on earth, isn't it?
Great. I have 2 more props.
I love the props.
Find
Oh.
your inner child and send love to your inner child. And then, somebody made this for me, find the parts of you that are still codependent.
I love that.
So
Look
this
at
was my
you.
inner child at 4. This was me at 42. And I thought that was my higher self, but it was my codependent self, because she was busy taking care of everybody else, exhausted,
Yeah.
and learning how to really let all your parts relax and you just show up makes all the difference. And changing the story and the work that you're doing and bringing people the opportunity to do this is really a gift.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you, Linda. I love the work that you do, and it really are two things just so coincide with each other, because
Yes.
it's really what it's all about, and it's finding that peace within yourself first, and that really is heaven on earth, right? And
Exactly.
and then everything else in your life changes. All the relationships, everybody around you cannot help but to change, because you've changed your energy, you've changed the way you think. And we think we want control of everything, but that's really how you gain the most control, is not letting other people be responsible for how you feel.
Right. And all your shoulds. One last thought. I was
Yeah.
interviewed recently on a recovering workaholic summit. And when I was interviewed, I didn't realize what a big workaholic I am, but I am.
Wow.
And I realized it's because we do certain extreme behaviors so we don't have to feel our feelings. And those parts take over and tell you what you should do and how many Facebook likes you need and how many emails you need to get out. And I went to the botanic the other day and I saw the flowers and the leaves. And I saw one flower and I thought, we are all flowers. We do not have to worry about anything that we're stressing over, any shoulds, any limiting beliefs or scripts that we wrote long ago or somebody else wrote for us. And the issue is just to be our flower, just be the flower that you are.
Be the flower. I love that. Let go of that shoulda, woulda, coulda story. Those are the
Exactly.
worst. Those are the worst. And just be your flower. We're going to end on that note because that's so beautiful, Linda. And step out and be your flower. And there's so many different variations, right? But flowers don't worry. The roses in my kitchen aren't worried about a thing.
Exactly.
So let's be like the flower. And thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you so much.
You're so welcome. It's been beautiful chatting with you.
You know, anytime. I love what you do. I love all that you are. And thank you for inviting me.
Right back at
Thank
you,
you
Linda.
for all of you too.
This has been beautiful. And you said it yourself. You said it's never too late, right? And I always tell people it is never too late to live your best story.
Exactly.
And
And I got
that's
one
really
last
important.
namaste.
Namaste.
Light in me sees and appreciates the light in you and the light in all of you. Tell your story from the light.
I love that. Beautiful, Linda. Great note to end on. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
remember, everybody, it is never too late to live your
Never.
best story. Never. Take it from Linda. Take care, everyone.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.